This is the second part of a hypothetical series discussing what would have happened if Mr Miyagi was still alive during the events of Cobra Kai the series. If you haven't already watched the first part and would like to, the link to that video should become available around about now. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like and subscribe. Also, comment your thoughts below. To recap what was discussed in part 1, for those of you CBA to watch the previous video, if Mr Miyagi was still alive, Daniel would have probably not lost as much balance as he did in Season 1, and would have been just as, if not more successful than he was in canon. Daniel's children would be a lot better turned out. However, Johnny's car would still get destroyed, and in the repair process, Johnny sees Daniel at LaRusso Auto. A bitter Johnny recruits Miguel, who is still beaten up by Kyla and Brooks outside the mini-mart, and when they try to fix the dojo up for opening, because the health inspector tells them that they need to get the insurance needed for Johnny to open, and he shouldn't be teaching anyone yet, the shop bell jingles. However, when Johnny turns to look to see who's entered the dojo, it's not Daniel, it's Mr Miyagi. Everything from this point forward will be a part of the second installment of this series of what if Mr Miyagi was still alive during the Cobra Kai series. Mr Miyagi would ask Johnny if he needs help with fixing anything. At first, not realizing who he's talking to, Johnny would tell Mr Miyagi to go away, calling him an old man and how he used to have a job as a repairman. Johnny has little money left and he needs money for rent, so this money must last him as long as it possibly can. Johnny would tell Miguel to keep cleaning and assume that Mr Miyagi had just left as he roots through his old karate memorabilia. Silently, Mr Miyagi would work on the dojo, and after an hour to an hour and a half of working with Johnny not realizing, Johnny would look in amazement at how good the dojo looks, and ask Miguel how he's made it so tidy and how everything looks so much better than it did when they were first cleaning it and had to work on it. Miguel would say that it wasn't him and he just cleaned a few things or did what he asked him to, and Johnny would see that Mr Miyagi was still standing there. Johnny would say he didn't have any money, and Mr Miyagi would say that no payment is necessary, as Johnny had just assumed that he wanted money and wanted to make money quickly and was just going around asking people if they needed any repair jobs doing. Johnny would tell Miguel to leave now, as there was nothing left to do and that's all that really needed to be done today. Mr Miyagi would try to tell Johnny how he can tell he's going through a hard time, and would try to impart some of his wisdom on him about finding balance. Also, as a side note, the logical way in which Mr Miyagi would have found out that Johnny was at this dojo would have been that later that day, after being in the dealership, Daniel would tell Mr Miyagi that he'd seen Johnny, and because Mr Miyagi just has this spiritual connection to people, he managed to just happen to know that Johnny would be somewhere in the Reseda area, and he found the dojo, the Cobra Kai signs, and that's how he found the dojo. Johnny would repeatedly try to get Mr Miyagi to leave the dojo, and get progressively more agitated as this happened. Johnny would resort to striking first, but he'd miss his punch and hit a wall hard, causing his knuckle to bleed or his hand. He would proceed to strike with the other fist, but this time, as Mr Miyagi dodged the punch, Johnny would smash the glass of a window, making his knuckles bleed on the other hand, so now both his knuckles are bleeding. A flashback of Kreese trying the exact same thing back in 1984 would play in Johnny's mind. Recognizing Mr Miyagi's face, Johnny would gasp, "It's you!" Throughout the rest of the Season 1 timeline, Mr Miyagi would regularly see Johnny and give him wisdom and help out with the dojo. He'd even try to train Miguel or assist in Miguel's training, since at first Johnny would give the same training to Miguel with the pitching machine and try not to get hit in the headlocks. However, Mr Miyagi would try to encourage Miguel to do some chores and some cleaning and whatever, to try and learn the Miyagi-Do way of karate for a beginner. Johnny would comment on how he doesn't think that a bunch of chores are going to help Miguel become a better fighter, and try to keep doing the same training with him. Miguel, however, would eventually start doing some of Mr Miyagi's training, especially as Johnny goes in the back room to grab a beer, or walks out and Mr Miyagi would try and say, "Oh, I'm old, I need help," trying to get Miguel to help out with the cleaning. After a few weeks of doing this, Miguel would grow tired of the chores, just like Daniel and Robbie both did when they were doing chores to learn Miyagi-Do. He complained about how the dojo doesn't even need more work, it's clean enough and in good enough condition to open. Johnny would tell him not to question his methods. Just as Miguel was about to leave, Mr Miyagi would tell him to show him wash the floor, as I believe there would be no sand the floor since the floors are pretty smooth and not wooden, and there's no excuse for him to wax any cars or anything, so he'd probably have wash the windows and wash the floor, but doing the same circular movement as wax on, wax off, and sand the floor would be. Mr Miyagi would be just about to show Miguel the moves of Miyagi-Do, and Daniel would storm in and say, "What the hell is this?" And that would be the end. And that is going to wrap it up for this part of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed this series. I'm going to try and make this video a weekly occurrence, as well as the videos that I'm already putting out about regular Cobra Kai stuff. And let me know if you enjoy these and want to see more of these, or if I should just focus on more generic Cobra Kai series stuff, like random one-off theories or predictions for the next season, or if you actually enjoy this multiple part series. I hope you enjoyed it. It's been your main man Maniac, and remember to stay amazing.